Hello everyone, today we're going to take a look at the Razorblade Typhoon versus the Razorpine. It's been a while since we've done a comparison video, but I feel like this would be a great opportunity, considering we just did a top 5 on some endgame weapons that'd be very helpful. And of course, these two would fit perfectly in that video, so if you haven't seen it, go ahead and check it out. I even give the Razorpine a shout out because it's still very good for endgame. Either way, we're going to go ahead and throw it up against these test dummies first for DPS to see what the difference is. Then from there, we'll go ahead and take on a boss in phase 2 to, again, compare damage. So first up, we're going to go ahead and use the Razorblade Typhoon, and I'll go ahead and use it from the workbench back here. So again, both of these are auto-cast, so all you have to do is just simply hold down the trigger and have it start attacking. As you can see right now, our damage is going, but unfortunately, being a small room, there we go. Yeah, it takes a little bit of aiming. You have to be very careful, but in the real-life application, you don't have to worry about this because, again, it's going to home in on enemies. So as you can see so far, we're averaging right around 300 some damage per second. It spikes and it lowers, and it kind of peaks around 300 damage roughly. Also, crits help a lot on this. For the armor and for the accessories, I'm not using anything to really buff damage. As a matter of fact, damage is going to be on a little bit lower end because I have the hood on for Spectre armor, so it's not going to get the most out of it. So yeah, it's roughly around that 300 damage mark. As again, you can see it spikes up, it spikes down. You got the crits that make a big difference as well. So I'm going to go on average to say close to 300, around 300 damage per second. Yeah, I could definitely say it's roughly about, on average, around the low 300s, which is not bad at all, again, considering this thing can home in on enemies. Let's go ahead and stop the attack real quick, and then we're going to take a look at the Razorpine. And again, after we get done the solo, we'll go ahead and do this on the next room where we have multiple test dummies. But the Razorpine, again, it has a little bit of a cone of attack, it's auto-cast as well, and it's still a really good weapon. So let's go ahead and get the attack started, shall we? And automatically right now, we see a big difference with the damage per second, because this is already up around the 7s. So yeah, again, this is a very powerful item. It drops from the Everscreams, while of course, you know, the Razorblade Typhoon drops from Duke Fishron. This is really good, and we're seeing a lot of crits, a very big amount of crits coming from this. Again, same armor, same accessories, nothing's really buffing damage, except maybe, I don't know, nothing really. But this is automatically at least double that of the Razorblade Typhoon. The biggest thing here is because of the use time, it has a much higher DPS. So yeah, definitely around 750-ish, I say it's a fair call. So we'll say Razorblade Typhoon's looking around 3, and Razorpine is looking like 750-ish. Alright, next up we have the multiple room, well, basically multiple test dummy room. Let's go ahead and see what this is about. Again, we'll take a little bit of time here. We'll let this see how this runs out. And, you know, it kind of shines better for the Razorblade Typhoon because, one, it handles multiple enemies better, and two, you can actually get a better beat on what this does. And we can see right now that with multiples, DPS jumps up way higher from what it was before in the single room. So we're looking at roughly 1,000 to 1,100 damage per second. Now again, the use time is lower than a Razorpine, but having multiple enemies and the fact that this pierces through them, along with how it bounces around, makes a big difference. So it's actually almost safe to say it's around 1,100. Now it's dropped down to about 900 some damage per second, but it does spike up again. So at least 1,050 damage per second, at least, while it does jump up and down. So far so good. We'll let this run a little bit further to see where, if it spikes up any higher or any lower, but it's fair to say at least 1,050. The criticals are always a large deciding factor, and of course when the criticals start hitting on a more consistent basis, we see it spike up to around 1,100, almost close to 1,200, but at the same time when it stops hitting, we start seeing it drop to around just under 1,000. So I would say a rough estimate would probably be about 1,050. I think it's a fair balance, because you're not always going to get those crits, and at the same time, you're not always going to hit those dry spots where you're not getting into those crits either. So, yeah, right now we're in a pretty good run. We just had some push into the 12, so maybe 1,075 on average, but it's still doing a pretty good job. So we're going to go ahead and see where we look at this, and automatically you see the one test dummy is taking a bulk of the damage. Now, occasionally, some of the needles go past that one, and it may hit some of the ones behind it, but yeah, this is kind of where it I want to say struggles, but in a way it kind of does. Now, if we kind of moved around for a little bit, it may be different, but in a real application, you're not going to have this. So it is what it is. So it's roughly on par with the damage it was doing in the previous room. Let's just leave it at that because we can already see that unless you're moving around a truckload, it's not going to be the same. Now, I could go up top here and do it this way. Now, you're going to have definitely some range on this because it makes a difference. But, you know, this is unfair for the Razorpine because you're not going to really... It's hard to stay still with this. Now, for this test, we're going to go ahead and take on the Lunatic Cultist. Same thing as before. We're not really using that much that really buffs. The only difference between this time is that we're using the Lucky Celestial Cell. So, of course, crits are going to be a little bit higher now. I feel like both of these weapons are going to be something I'm going to use toward the end of the game. This is a very good point for them. So we're going to go ahead and give this a try. No potions, no nothing. Our goal is just to basically simply attack and try to survive and see if we can beat them. And so far, yeah, damage per second, not all that great. But again, it does help that we home in on this. So again, with the Razorblade Typhoon, it makes a big difference. We also do have to be careful because this guy likes to do simple tricks like this. Now, it would actually go up if we actually had more of the Lunatic Cultist on screen, but at the same time, you're also going to be taking more damage and getting yourself into more trouble if they were all there. So right about now, it looks, you know, looks very pedestrian. It looks very bland. You're not really doing a whole lot with it. Again, we have 100-some damage, roughly. It tends to hover around that mark. It'll be interesting to see where the Razorpine comes in on this. And at the same time, I'm not even really moving that much, so I'm trying to make sure I stay on target with this. Again, it helps the homing is kicking in too, but either way, it's, again, this is something that's more real-world-ish. Alright, so this fight actually takes a little bit because, again, as we've already seen, the Razorblade Typhoon is not exactly the strongest in single, but when we actually start getting more mobs on the screen or anything else that it targets, DPS does go up. So use time plays a little bit of a role. The fact that multiple mobs play a role. Again, this is really strong for multi-mob situations and like invasion events like Martian Madness and such, but when it comes to solo, it's a little bit of a different story, but it's still a very, very effective weapon to say the least. As of right now, we almost got this down, and I'll be looking forward to go ahead and testing the Razorpine. Again, that doesn't have autocast. Well, it does have autocast, but it doesn't have the homing ability, so it's not as dependable, I guess you could say, aiming-wise. So if you go ahead and defeat the Lunatic Cultist, it's not as dependable or reliable. With this, you can just run around, just hold the trigger. As long as you're aiming close to it, you'll get the benefit of the homing ability, but if not, well, you're kind of relying on your own aiming ability, and we'll see how good mine is next. Now, when it comes to single target damage, I predict that this is going to go a lot quicker because the Razorpine has a much quicker use time, even though it has a lower base damage. While the Razorblade Typhoon has about 51 base damage, this has roughly 40. So again, use time makes all the difference here, and let's go ahead and get this started real quick as we got all kind of critters outside just ready to go ahead and play, and we don't have time for them. So let's go ahead and get this started. And again, I predict this is going to go much quicker, and of course, it's going to have more damage for the Razorpine. But again, we're also going to be moving a lot more too. We don't have that homing ability that the Razorblade Typhoon brings to the table. So it's going to be a little bit more challenging. Not a whole lot more, but it will definitely be more to it. And we can already see that we're not doing the big numbers like we were, but actually I messed that up. Whoops. But yeah, we're still doing roughly in the same neighborhood. But you also have to rely more on targeting. Get out of here. Get out of here, please. But we are doing some more damage to a degree when I'm actually able to hit. The dragon. Ooh, the dragon is such a pain in the butt. And of course, we definitely want to go ahead and get this right. So let's get you out of here, please. Yeah, we're definitely doing way more damage, but we also have to be way more careful too. Because again, we don't have the ability to simply run around and just do damage at free will. By the way, both of these tests are being done in expert mode, so take them for what they're worth. Again, bosses are going to be a little more difficult. They're going to have a little bit more armor, and it's not the same overall. So let's go ahead and focus you. Again, when we get closer, DPS is going to spike up too because you have more needles coming out. Again, that use time as well as the attack cone that it does is going to make a big difference. So if you can get closer, which I don't always recommend, you can get more DPS out of it. So let's just avoid all the nonsense here. I think this is a nice safe range. Again, we're not getting the most out of this weapon, but at the same time, we're also not getting bombarded by damage either. So you saw me struggle a little bit earlier, but again, we rebounded nicely, and again, we're staying a nice safe distance away because I don't want to eat too much damage here. All right, now that we almost wrapped up this fight, just several things to keep an eye on with the Razorpine. You have to stay within a certain range. You also have to be mindful of other mobs. But for the most part, it does beat out the Razorblade Typhoon in one-on-one damage. and it's actually a bit more efficient when it comes to multiple damage. I would recommend the Razorblade for invasion events, Frost Moon, things like that, Martian Madness event. But when it comes to boss fights and everything, Razorblade Typhoon works out really, it does work out really, really good, but I think the Razorpine is more optimal as long as you can stay within a certain range and not get out of it. So yeah, we did end that fight much, much quicker than we would have with, we've got company here. We've ended that fight much, much quicker than we did with the Razorblade Typhoon. So for the most part, Razorblade Typhoon is great for multiple enemies. Definitely highly recommended. It does a pretty good job of damage and homing, while the Razorblade, or the Razorpine, does a much better job with solos, and it handles better. So again, take it for what it's worth. So that's pretty much going to do it. I recommend the Razorblade Typhoon for multiple situations. If you have an invasion wave like the Martian Madness, the Frost Moon, or anything, it works out really good. You'll get the most out of the DPS, plus it homes in on targets. The use time's a little bit slow, even though the base damage is a little bit higher. The Razorblade Typhoon has 51 base damage, but it still works out really, really good in multiple mob situations. Now when it comes to boss fights and solo situations where you have one or two mobs tops, Razorpine is definitely better. It has a lower base damage of 40, but at the same time, it does get the job done. It does have a quicker use time, and again, you know, if you stay in range, it does insanely more damage. So in the end, again, take it for what it's worth. Razorpine definitely good for solo situations, while the Razorblade Typhoon does good in multiple. So let me know what you think down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any suggestions, that'd be great as well. But overall, I think these are two very good weapons for endgame. Take them for what they're worth. Both of them would work really good against the Moonlord. It's all up to your preference, really, and what you may be doing at the time. Anyway, thank you so much. Be sure to like this video, as it helps the channel out greatly if you enjoyed it. Keep an eye out for more videos coming in the future. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and I will see you again next time. The video's over, but there's more where that came from. Be sure to subscribe for more Terraria Let's Plays, Top 5s, and other videos as well as we cover different titles. You can click on one of the videos here for more. Be sure to rate this video accordingly, as it helps the channel out greatly. Have yourself a wonderful day, and I will see you again next time.